everybody. Welcome back to episode 70 of Talkoffamepod with your host, Kylie, and I'm so excited to have on host of the Greg Krino show, the Air Force Reserve, Greg Krino. Thanks so much for coming on, Greg.
Thanks for having me, Kylie.
Of course. So you are the host of the Greg Krino show. What made you want to start doing that and basically being in this industry?
Well, I think it was for more personal therapy than anything. I had a lot to say, and a podcast is a great way to do that. I also like to have more in-depth conversations, and I think arguing with people online and on Facebook, typing one little sentence or two at a time just wasn't a great way to communicate. It wasn't a great way to get my ideas across. And so I got into podcasting. It's also just been a great adventure to meet really smart people. My show is about experts and people with unique experiences. So people can be experts in many different things. And so it's nice. I get to learn from them. I get to become smarter myself. I get to, like I said, meet some fantastic people. And at the same time, I can talk about things that I want to talk about. It's hard to, I think, when you're in a casual conversation at work or at school, a lot of these conversations are very quick. If something comes up that you want to talk about, say it's about, I don't know, it could be something about politics, or it could be something about relationships, and we only have a couple minutes and then people have to go. And so it's like, man, I want to sit and talk for a longer time. And so a podcast allows me to do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's really the reason why I started this podcast is I actually want to have conversations. That's not a couple of second conversation. I actually want to talk to people and learn more about them. That's to have actually a real conversation, because when I was a younger girl, I was very shy, and I had bad anxiety and depression going on. So I was so my anxiety didn't allow me to do a lot of things as a kid. So I didn't have the kind of the best childhood in the world. But then as a kid, I was people wouldn't really talk to me because I was very shy and everything. So I'd be what do I say here? This is awkward. I didn't want to barge into the conversation. I would just sit there and I'm thinking to myself, why am I missing out on these conversations? I want to change that. I actually want to have a conversation and get to know this person. If I don't do that, then I'm really missing out. And that's the reason why I really want to start this thing. He's I want to change my life and other people's life, but no matter if it's politics, relationships, entertainment industry, sports, no matter what it is, I'm as long as that if they want to have a conversation about some things that they're interested in, then that's really the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's impressive, I think, for somebody, especially in who's your age in high school, to be taking that leap. I mean, a lot of adults, I'm in my 40s, they are shy to do that, and so for you to do it at such a young age it's a great thing. So there's a lot of learning to be had. There's a lot of positives. And I think you're right. I think it's just the best way to have a real conversation. So,
exactly. So
yeah.
You are a lieutenant colonel with over 20 years in the Air Force. Is that right?
Yeah, it's pronounced lieutenant colonel. It's funny. It's one of those words. I don't know why it's spelled the way it is, but it's pronounced colonel. Yeah, like Kernel. It's funny. Yeah, a lot of people will say colonel because that's how it's spelled. But yeah, I'm a lieutenant colonel. In the Air Force reserves right now. I was active duty for about 10 years, and active duty just means that you're a full-time, you're doing this full-time. There are some little nuances there, but mostly active duty means you're doing it as a full-time job. As a reservist, you're doing it more as a part-time job. And so I did about 10 years active duty, and then now I've been in the reserves for the last 11 years or so. I had a break there in the middle. But yeah, I've been in the Air Force pretty much my whole adult life.
Oh, that's awesome. What kind of made you want to be in the Air Force? Is there something that made you want to start doing it?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to fly. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And so I grew up in the 70s and 80s when Star Wars first came out, which is interesting because Star Wars is such a big thing now.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, it was brand new. And I saw my first Star Wars movie and I was like, I want to go to space and I want to be like Luke Skywalker. And I took the steps to do that. I did pretty well in high school. And when I was applying for colleges, the Air Force Academy seemed like the best way to become a fighter pilot. And I went there, did well enough to to graduate and then go to pilot training, and ended up flying the A-10 Warthog for about 13 years. And so I kind of got to fulfill that childhood dream. But yeah, the biggest reason was I wanted to fly upside down and blow things up.
Yeah,
as,
exactly.
as simple as that sounds, that was the reason. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how like my cousin is. He's my cousin Chad serves in the Navy. And he's
Hmm.
been doing that for a couple of years, and his dad and mother served in the military as well. And like his dad was in the military in the Navy, and like his dad, like my uncle Doug was like always like he had always had like bad vision, so it's hard for him to fly. He always wanted to fly, and
Hmm.
so like due to his eyesight, he was forbidden to fly, and like he still served in the military, but just couldn't fly. And so
Hmm.
my cousin Chad, I don't know how long he's been doing it for, but I think before I was even born, he's been flying planes. Like I forget where he is now, but he's one of the top kind of things in the Navy. I don't know what it's called, but like I have to
Hmm.
ask him. But like he's one of the top things, and like he literally just flew over my airport a couple of weeks ago. Like he's
Oh,
really one
okay.
of the best to kind of ever do it in the Navy or in our family, because my family comes from a lot of people in the military, so it's kind of in our genes to kind of
Yeah.
be in the military. But like how like did you ever kind of think that you would basically be in Air Force, or is it kind of something you like kind of thought about like as you got older?
Oh, about being in the Air Force itself.
Yeah,
You know, I don't think I didn't enter the Air Force because I specifically wanted to be in the military. It was more I wanted to be a pilot,
yeah.
and the military was just the best way to do that. I was actually pretty hesitant about the military aspect of it. When I was in high school, I liked to be with my friends. I wanted to stay out late at night. I wanted to have fun, and the military was very strict, and you had to wear a uniform, and you had to march, and you had to do all these things that I really didn't want to do. So it wasn't the military part that excited me. So I think I did have a little bit of a desire to do something greater than myself, like serve my country and help people around the world. I think that maybe was in the back of my mind a little bit, but it was more just the flying part. I'll admit it was more just the excitement of that.
Hmm.
Now, as I went along, the military part became more embedded in me, and I started to kind of enjoy it more. I think it was pretty foreign in the beginning. I
Hmm.
thought even it was kind of nerdy in a way. When
Yeah.
I looked at kids who were in high school who were doing junior ROTC or some of the military programs, I kind of thought they were dorks. And now I don't feel that way. Now I see people in uniform, and of course, because I did it for so long, I identify more with them. Um, but yeah, initially the Air Force was not. It was more of a means to an end. It
Yeah.
wasn't something that I pursued by itself. It was definitely the flying part that I pursued.
Exactly. So you now assist with command and control combat operations. Is that right?
Yes. So now in the reserves, I don't fly in the Air Force anymore. I fly for an airline. So I'm not a
Hmm.
fighter pilot anymore, but my job in the Air Force Reserve is, yeah, that's a lot of words. I assist with command and control in the Indo-Pacific region. That's a
Hmm.
lot of words for saying that I help to coordinate airplanes in the Pacific Ocean area.
Yeah.
I know that's still a lot of words, but primarily we focused on the Korean Peninsula area. So the conflict that's been going on in Korea for decades now.
Hmm.
My unit helps to plan if there is a conflict in that area. We help to plan how we're going to deal with that conflict, specifically the Air Force part. So we tell the airplanes where they're going to go, what targets they're going to hit. We coordinate the coming and going of the cargo airplanes. So anything that happens around the Korean area, my
Hmm.
squadron is sort of in charge of planning that. If
Oh
it if
wow.
it if it comes down to that, so it's preparation. Hopefully we never will have to go to a war, but if they do, then or if we do, then my unit would help to plan that.
Oh wow. Like, did you guys ever
Mm.
have to kind of prepare for those type of stuff, or you guys haven't like kind of haven't got that far yet?
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet in Korea. Now we have airplanes that are based there now.
Yeah.
So they're all over the area, and everybody has plans that if things go badly, they know basically what to do. Um, we've never really gotten to the point where it's been a shooting war. I mean, there have been
Yeah.
little things that have happened. People have been shot, and there have been little skirmishes in small areas throughout the decades, but nothing that's risen to the level of a major war that we had, in the Korean area in the early 1950s. But a lot of the pilots, and just general military people, they have done other things in other parts of the world. So like the Middle East, like after 9/11, we had a lot of people go into the Middle East for, in conflicts out there. A lot of us have experience doing that.
Yeah.
And so we know how it generally works. And so if it does happen in Korea, then we're prepared.
Oh wow, that's amazing. So do you guys like just specifically work in Korea, or is it you guys like kind of work like places around it, or just specifically Korea?
So we work all around the world. Right now, my unit is in California. So we meet and do all of our training here in California. But then we go to Korea once a year to do an exercise with the Koreans. So about 2 to 3 weeks of every year, we go out there and we kind of work with them on a base out there.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you have anyone that you look up to as like a podcast host, or as a person in the Air Force?
Oh, look up to as a podcast host. Well, let's start with that one. I mean, a very famous one obviously is Joe Rogan. I like his long form conversations. Not to say that I'm just like him in all ways, but I do like the longer conversation. So my podcast will run anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours that I talk to somebody. So I like the long form, detailed conversations that, he's famous for. I also like that he talks to people that have, interesting things to talk about. They could have a lot of tragedy in their past. So they talk about very serious issues as well as very fun issues. So kind of Joe Rogan goes all over the map on that. So I do like that format as a podcaster. As far as people in the Air Force, who do I look up to in the Air Force? I've got a handful of friends, really. I don't have any specific famous person that I look up to that people would know. But I do have a lot of friends that have just done very well, whether it's as fighter pilots or as leaders, former commanders. But yeah, nobody in specific. It's that's a good question though. You're getting me thinking. So nice job.
Yeah. So like out of all the guests you had on your show, what interview kind of meant the most to you, or kind of stuck out to you the most?
Oh, I would say the prisoner, or I'm sorry, two. Oh man. The one that stuck out the most would have been a Holocaust survivor.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he is in his 90s now. His name is Sam Silberberg, and he was actually captured by Nazis in Poland. He's Jewish. And so that one stuck out a lot. I went to his house, talked to him for about 2 to 3 hours. And it was just an honor just to talk to somebody who experienced such a horrific part of history directly. And he's still alive and lucid and can remember everything. So that was a big one. I would say the second big one was a prisoner of war. He was a fellow A-10 pilot like me, older than me, but he was shot down in the first Gulf War in 1991 over Iraq. And so he was captured and spent 19 days as a prisoner of war. So I think I love talking to people who have experienced such harsh things and have dealt with it with, strength and have come out of it. And, they're really just examples of courage for all of us. So yeah, I would say the Sam Silberberg, the Holocaust survivor, and then Rob Sweet, the A-10 pilot who was a prisoner of war.
Oh wow, that's absolutely insane. Like, oh
yeah.
my gosh. Like, because I have family that were actually in the Holocaust. Because I'm actually Jewish on my mom's side. So like I had some family that were in the Holocaust, and my nana, my mother's mother, was actually born at one of the Holocaust camps with my aunt. So that's something I didn't know until like last year. And like to think, like there's some people that are alive from the Holocaust, but there's not a lot of people still here today from the Holocaust.
Well, that's the thing, is that there are a lot of people who were, I guess, around in Europe at that time, but they were really young, 3 years old, 5 years old. They don't really remember much. I think what was really special about Sam was that he was 10 or 11. So he remembers it really well. And he didn't get captured right away either. He was actually like smuggling food to his fellow Jews in Poland. He was, stealing things from Nazis. Like he was actually out there trying to fight as a kid, and he remembers it really well. And now he's still walking around. The guy is just has some special genes. He's in shape. And so I think to talk to somebody who actually remembers it really well is also a treat, because they're not going to be around forever.
Yeah, exactly. That's really awesome. I'm like
Yeah.
kind of struck right now. But like,
Yeah, have a listen. I interviewed him maybe in September of last year, so it's been many episodes ago, but you can go to gregkrino.com and scroll through my episodes, and you can find Sam Silverberg. I've got, I think, a two-part episode with him.
yeah, I definitely check it out once we get finished with this whole thing so I can learn more about it. But
Yeah.
since quarantine started back in 2020, how much do you think how much do you think has changed in terms like the Air Force or as a host of a show since the pandemic started?
Oh, so what has changed due to the pandemic? Is that kind of what you're asking me?
Yeah.
You mean in the Air Force or just for
Basically, or
anything?
just in general, like
Oh,
in your life, or just kind of in general.
I think the biggest thing that has changed is this. I mean, we're able to do things on Zoom now, whether it's work or socializing or podcasting. So I think that's been the positive thing, is we can meet new people in different ways and actually connect, and have more, I guess just have more in different types of relationships with people. So that's been a net positive. I also think another positive is that we have options now in terms of work. So my wife, for example, is able to work completely remotely. She can do her normal job. Her office actually closed down here in Los Angeles, the physical office, and they're allowing her to work from home, which is really helping us out because we're about to have a little boy here coming up, and just to be able to work from home is great. So that's the positive. The negative part is, I think, probably what you experienced, and I really feel bad for people your age in this way, is that you can't be in school with your friends, and you're having to wear a mask, even though it's not that dangerous for you to not wear a mask. Like, a lot of people's lives have been canceled for like their graduations and weddings, and so really sad things about people dying in the hospital by themselves because they couldn't have visitors. So there's been a lot of drawbacks. I think, though, we're working out of it, and I think we're learning a lot of lessons about the importance of human connection. And I think that hopefully, if we do have something like this, God forbid, happen again, we can deal with it a little bit better. Not to say that the next time this happens, it will be the exact same. I mean, it could be something that's even more dangerous. Who knows? So we have to be willing to make adjustments. So yeah, I try to focus on the positive, and I think things like this are a positive. Meeting people on Zoom and doing podcasts, and so that's the part that I try to focus on.
Yeah, me too. Like COVID has been around for 2 years, and personally, like I thought it would last a couple of weeks. I thought it was gonna be like a big thing. I thought, oh, this is gonna be a couple of weeks. I kind of feel like I needed this break, time to relax, spend time with the family. I could really use this time off. And plus, like I do online school, and I started before quarantine, so like it wasn't really a big change in terms of school for me. So I was already online. And so that's not big of a change. I'm just gonna be home more. It's not big of a deal to be home or whatever, be around the family. And now, like 2 years later, I'm like, well, I'm kind of getting sick of being home a little bit more. But like in sense, like I a couple months ago, I tested positive for COVID with my whole family. And personally, like for me, it didn't hit me that hard. And like once I hear people having to have like kids wear masks, I'm thinking to myself like, it's not bad as you think it is. Like unless like someone has like a illness they suffer with or something they have, then maybe a bit more dangerous. But then at the end of the day, like if you really need to wear a mask, then wear it. It shouldn't be mandatory. But now in schools, masks are not really mandatory anymore, I think, for some schools.
Yeah.
In my area, and like or where you live too, and like it's really different across the country and everything. But like I just think like it's really different for everyone. Like people for people's grandparents and all those stuff, then they should really look out for it a little bit more. But then at the end of the day, like around teenagers, they should be a little more conscious that they probably won't get hit hard as they thought they would.
Yeah, well, I think also the important thing is that maybe another positive thing out of this is that We'll have to, if you are a person who is sick, that it's okay to wear a mask. And if we're out in public and people happen to be wearing masks, maybe they've got a good reason for it. Maybe it's not COVID, it could be something else. It's so like the mask thing is going to kind of, make its way into our culture. It was just kind of like after 9/11. Like I know you don't remember 9/11, but
Yeah.
right after that, airport security changed.
Yeah.
And we kind of got used to it. And another thing that was good was that passengers became more involved in security on the airplane. I mean, before 9/11, if somebody got up and rushed into the cockpit and hijacked an airplane, the idea was like, okay, just remain quiet, don't do anything. We'll land the airplane, it'll be over, and we'll give them some money, and that'll be it. Now, if somebody grows up and runs at the cockpit, everybody jumps in, so passengers are like, they know that they have to participate in their own safety. So that was a good thing to come out of that. And maybe for COVID, a good thing might be, okay, if you're sick, you stay home, you wear your mask, and if you're out and you see somebody wearing a mask, like there might be a good reason for it. So it's all about personal choice and protecting ourselves and being healthy, exercising, watching what you eat, because the people who didn't do so well with COVID tended to have other conditions going on. So, we can make positive changes if we just kind of pay attention.
Yeah, exactly. Like once kind of 9/11 hit, like were you currently in the Air Force at that time when like 2001 hit and everything with the 9/11?
I was, yes, I was actually I was a fighter pilot, and I was living in Arizona, and I was about 26 years old when that happened, so I remember it very vividly. Yeah, I was in the Air Force, and it was definitely scary. I think we didn't know what was going to happen. That afternoon at the Air Force base where I was stationed in Tucson, Arizona, they called in everybody, and everybody had to come into work. There were people who were getting deployed, like sent to the Middle East that night. So you can imagine having just going about your business. It's a normal Tuesday, and then that night you're packing your bags, and some people were being shipped off. So it happened very quickly. Now, my unit didn't deploy right away, so we all got called into work, and then after a day we're like, okay, we're not going to be the ones that are going, just sit tight, we'll see what happens. I ended up getting deployed to the Middle East a month later. So I had to go to the Middle East to help set up a base out near Saudi Arabia. So I got sent there, and I wasn't flying an airplane over there. I wasn't doing any fighter pilot stuff. I was doing more administrative stuff. But I got orders to go, and they said it could be 6 months. We're not sure, and we're not sure what you're going to be doing. But here's the base, and here are your tickets, and pack your bags. And so I had to go. And when I got there, it was a very not a well built up base. Like we had 3 computers for a base of like a couple thousand people.
Oh wow.
We only had one hot meal a day. We had like these packaged meals for everything else. We had no clean water, so we had to drink out of water bottles. Sleeping on cots. It was really pretty tough.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like I remember from my dad's experience, like it would happen 5 years before I was born, so I never got to kind of experience the whole thing. But I remember my dad went to what is it, the Bahamas for a work trip. I remember he was supposed to come back like that morning or something.
Yeah.
And like I just remember like they literally like once all happened, all flights got delayed. Like they couldn't let flights fly to where they're supposed to go because are scared like there's supposed to be more kind of planes hitting places or because it was a terrorist attack. So they didn't want any planes to fly and everything, since they were afraid that it's gonna happen again. And I just remember my dad telling me that his plane, like he didn't leave for a couple of days because of how backed up it was, because of 9/11. They're just afraid that everything was kind of our country was under attack, which it was. We just didn't want to make it worse by everyone flying and happening again.
Yeah. Well, and just one more thing on that. When it first happened, we didn't know the extent of the damage either. So, I remember the day that it happened. We obviously now we know that it was 4 airplanes total that went down. Well, I remember at the time they said, we think it could be 9 or 10 airplanes. We have no idea. So every airplane that was already in the air, every airliner could have potentially been a threat. And so, there was that going on. I think in New York, we didn't know that it was, 3,000 people. We thought it could be up to 50,000 because those buildings are so huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you're first going through it, things are a lot different.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the final question for the whole thing is, what is some advice for younger generations that like to be in the Air Force or as a host of a show one day?
Advice for younger people, I would say just have some patience. You don't have to do everything right now. If you're unsure, that's okay. That's that's my kind of my near-term advice is do well in school, do the big things correctly. Don't do the, make sure you're physically keeping yourself out of danger. Don't, staying out late at night, avoiding all the drugs and alcohol and things like that. So just do the big things correctly right now. Have some patience about what you want to do. You don't have to figure it out right away. But as you get older, I would say try to figure out what you are afraid of. Figure out your anxieties that you have. And it could be different for everybody. But have a deep conversation with yourself, find out what you are afraid of and address those fears, whether it means improving yourself. So if you are afraid to speak publicly, make yourself a better public speaker, get in there and learn. If you are not good at something physically, whether it's athletics or you feel like you're not in good shape, then correct that. So I think self-improvement, I would say, make yourself good at something. And then, doors will open up from there. I think what people incorrectly believe is that success comes from just luck and opportunities that are given to you. But you become lucky and more successful when you improve yourself first. So start with yourself. That's what I would say.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on. It means absolutely so much. It's such an honor to speak with you and have you on. And I wish you really the best of luck with everything. And we'll definitely speak soon for sure. Thank you so much for coming on again.
Well, thanks, Kylie. And it's an honor for me to be on. So you're doing a great thing. And I wish you continued success as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure. And thank you so much for coming on again. It's a pleasure.
All right. Thanks.
Great. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye, Kylie. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.
You too.